Hi, welcome to the third episode of the eur-hired podcast. I'm Jess and I'm the marketing executive here at Eurobase, and I'm joined by Paul, who is our Managing Director. Hi, Paul.
Hello, Jess. How are we?
Yeah, good. Yeah, a bit of a different episode this week. I think obviously it's coming towards the end of the year, and it would just be good to get your thoughts on how the year's been and just life at Eurobase People in 2024. So I'll start right now. How has 2024 been in the recruitment world, would you say?
A challenge, I think. I think most people would agree. Recruitment is always a roller coaster, but I think this year has been, like I say, even those of us that have been in recruitment for a fair amount of time has probably really, like I say, challenged us in many areas. I think we came into the year after a difficult 2023 on the back of some really positive years, certainly in the tech space, and I think we were hoping and expecting there was going to be a surge, and I think in the very early part of the year that there was. And then it just feels like it's been one thing after another. So obviously we had in the UK the general election that was called. We've had obviously elections in the US. We've had obviously a Labour landslide, and then they obviously have a budget which has thrown some challenges into the back half of the year. But it feels like it's one of those years where there's been a lot of doubt within our client base. And I always say as a recruiter, good news is best. Bad news you can still react to, because a lot of clients, even if they make difficult staffing decisions, 3-6 months down the line, they win a new project and they're hiring again. The worst thing that you can have in our space is doubt. And we've had an awful lot of that. Things that were Q1, we're going to bump them to Q2 because there's an election. Then we're going to bump them to Q3 because it's the summer. Now we're going to bump them to Q4 because it's the US or the budget, wherever it might be. And obviously now everything is all looking towards 2025. So yeah, it's been a tough one. We've had a strong year at Eurobase, as you know. We've been working hard and making sure that we kind of are as we're maximising every opportunity that we get. I think probably the difference is where we've had a good year this year. Normally in a good year, you feel like you're almost surfing a wave and everything's not easy, but things are falling. Whereas it feels like this year, every single pound that we brought into the business, it feels like you've really earned and really had to scrap over.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we've also had quite a lot of events going on with people saying sort of similar things. I went to an event in London. I think that it's quite nice to hear everyone else is sort of maybe going through the same thing as well.
You went to the TRN marketing event, yeah?
Yeah. It was really nice as well, just to go speak to other people even though they're in the industry, but outside of recruitment. As in not recruitment consultants, but marketing consultants. So it was just, a bit of a different take, and they're still sort of, it's nice to know that you're not alone and everyone else is sort of going through a similar thing as well. So it was quite a nice event. Yeah, I think you've obviously been to quite a few events this year as well, haven't you?
Yeah, it's firstly, I'd say as an aside, it's great that the recruitment sector seems to do these things now. I don't know whether it's an age and experience thing, but certainly earlier on in my career, the thought of getting recruiters to get together and to be so open with each other in terms of some of the challenges, I just can't. It just didn't seem to exist. Now, like I say, whether that's a case of obviously at a more senior level in my career and people are a bit more open, on that front, but it's great that people are so honest. And yeah, there's been a fair few events that I've been to this year where people have been very, very honest in terms of the challenges that they face. Certainly at the start of the year, as I say, that was probably a little bit of a surprise for me, because we were having a really strong start. And to see that perhaps that wasn't reflected across the board was a surprise. We obviously slowed down a little bit in the summer, and it's been with some of our clients a little bit of a slow back half of the year because they don't seem to have really come out of that summer slowdown. But certainly I think probably the event that maybe brought it home for me, without speaking out of turn, because there are always events I enjoy, was the Rec Expo. So I went to the expo in Birmingham at the NEC. They normally do the one in the spring in London, and then they do the Birmingham one sort of October, November. That felt like an event where everybody was kind of a little bit battle weary. Everyone had a beating for the last 18 months, and even the enthusiasm from the exhibitors. Normally there's a bit of fun going around. There's lots of money that have been spent on the stands. We've had various kind of lookalikes and games, and lots of freebies and everything else, and it just felt like an industry that's probably had a little bit of a kick in really for like I say, sort of 12 to 18 months, and that's sad in a way. What I will say is that it is a leveling off from what had been historically a real boom, and the good thing that I took from that is actually the expo itself was fantastic. I came away more takeaways this year than ever before. Now, whether that's because we're all looking for ways to solve some of the challenges and therefore you're a bit more open to ideas maybe than you would be traditionally, I don't know. But I felt that was, that was a really kind of a good event, albeit, like I say, when I kind of first arrived, I thought, wow, this probably paints a little bit of a picture of the recruitment sector at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think it was kind of similar with when I went to the TRM one. Like it almost feels like every time we talk about it, it's like it is going to be better in 2025, but with just like everyone's kind of had the same issues. And I think it's good to go to these events because at least you then know you're not alone in this, and it's like the industry as a whole, but like you don't really get that chance all the time if you're just in your own
no, and the REC, the REC as well, do a pretty good job in terms of keeping people informed. And I've been to a few of their events, certainly with the various sort of legislation changes that came about, and obviously the budget that I mentioned. Finding out how that's going to affect, and obviously that will present a lot of challenges next year. There's no doubt about that. I know it sounds a bit negative, but the reality is that all of our costs as any business, not just a recruitment business, all businesses are going to have cost increases as a result of the budget, and therefore that may affect staffing both internally in recruitment businesses, but also the amount of hiring that the clients can do. I thought, going back to like I say, the year as a whole, I think the post that you sort of wait for every month is the REC and KPMG jobs report, and I think it's probably been seen by every recruiter now on LinkedIn. About a couple of months ago, 6-8 weeks ago, Greg Savage kind of analysed the spikes of that graph, and it goes all the way back to the dot-com bubble, right? At the very beginning, around the millennium, and obviously what I think has made this, as he rightly points out, this is his analysis, not mine, but I think it's something that we can all relate to, is that where there has been shocks in the past, so like we said, the dot-com bubble burst in, we've had the financial crisis 2007, 2008, obviously COVID, there's been bits and pieces, but all of the times where there has been a challenging market condition, it has been severe, but it's been relatively short. And it goes back to my original point, I suppose, about bad news. You eventually come out of that. What we've had this time, sort of post the COVID boom, so probably late 2022 into last year and throughout this year, the dip is nowhere near as bad. Okay, in COVID, obviously the whole world stopped, so that was pretty severe. But in other recessions, there's been some fairly kind of large challenges at the time. This has been more of a slow burn, so it hasn't decreased by as much in terms of the amount of jobs on the market, which obviously they measure, but it's now gone on for longer than any other negative result within that graph, which, when you think that goes all the way back to, like I say, 25 years plus, we're not talking about we're talking about a big expanse of time. So to say that it's been the longest period does show that we have been through it. And I think kudos to those of us that are still here in recruitment, because there has been, I've seen various stats recently. I don't know, you never know where these stats are from, but I've seen that there's many thousands of recruiters that are no longer in the industry. There's some fairly large recruitment organizations who have unfortunately closed their doors this year because they've not been able to ride that storm. And yes, there is positive sentiment for next year. But I think all of us want to make sure that that translates into roles filled and business, because obviously we can't pay our bills with sentiment. But yeah, fingers crossed, like I say, next year comes through. But from our side, just to, I suppose, wrap up the opening question, yes, it's been a challenge. Yes, there's a lot thrown at us. I think the whole sector is almost there's a little bit of a collaboration going on now with everybody kind of supporting each other. But from our side, it's been a really positive year. Albeit, like I say, we're hoping that this kind of sort of slightly quieter end of the year will pick up, as we're starting to see. I mean, December, weirdly, as you've seen, Jess, on the floor in the last couple of weeks, December seems to have been busier than September, October, November combined, which is a really strange thing to say. But I think clients now are starting to say, we're hiring next year. Let's not wait. Let's crack on.
Yeah, I think it's definitely good to see that there's more like activity going on towards the end of the year. Do you think, like, what would you say, I guess, were the biggest challenges maybe for clients this year? Like, have you noticed?
Yeah, so I think any client that's dependent on, so we work obviously in the tech space, so obviously there's a lot of clients that are dependent on their customers. So if you're a consultancy, you're waiting for projects and so on, and a lot of them, the phrase I heard a lot this year, probably more than ever in the previous years of my career combined, was about things sliding to the right. So what I mean by that is, we've got a project, it's planned for this quarter. You speak to them, they say, look, it's still on, it's not been cancelled. It's not been, there's not a pause. So it hasn't been kind of stopped completely. It's just been paused and it's been moved. It's slid to the right. So it's now in Q2 or it's now in Q3. So their challenge, I suppose, from their side is that they're coming to us for the extra staff they need, but they've also got their own staff that they're needing to keep busy as well whilst that happens. And there is this, kind of, like I say, sort of pause is probably the best word with some of these projects. The other thing that I think is really important to reference as well, and I'll be careful kind of how I word this, is that, unfortunately, when there are cuts made in a company, some of these larger organizations that are making layoffs, typically they are the less experienced people, the more junior people. And I would say that at the top level, there is still the same demand for the genuine specialist superstar candidates that there always was. The problem that you now find with clients is that where they've got so many people on the market is they're being inundated. So I remember a client that we saw in Berlin in the summer when I was on the visits with Harry, who supports the Berlin area. And the client said he had, I can't remember exactly what the role, business analyst role, I think it was. And he'd had something like 500 applicants, this is internally, so that the age old, we don't need recruiters because we're getting lots of our own applicants. He then narrowed it down. I think he interviewed 5 people. He finally interviewed 2 people. He offered someone, and then the person didn't join. And he kind of sat in this cafe in Berlin telling us his story, exasperated, because he said, if I track back, I think it was a CTO, and he said, if I look at how many hours that I have wasted to get to this outcome, multiply it by what effectively his hourly rate is, our recruitment fee doesn't seem so bad. But it is, it's like anything, isn't it? If you think there's lots of choice, you're bound to find someone. But the demand for that top talent, to me, doesn't seem to have subsided. So it's a bit of a perfect storm in a way for clients, in that they're inundated, but actually they still can't find the right person that they need. So there are some real challenges. But like I say, hopefully with now the things releasing and the projects beginning, we could look to a more positive, or that they can look to a more positive start to the year, which then gives them a little bit more freedom in terms of being able to hire and I suppose hire with confidence that they know that these people are going to be utilised for the future projects.
Yeah, and I guess as well, like, they're saving time, which in the long run is beneficial for them. But I guess it's when you see it.
We work in recruitment, so we know, everyone thinks they can do it themselves. There's lots of analogies. You see fights on LinkedIn all the time between clients, internal recruiters and recruiters. The reality is, when you ask an expert to do DIY in your house or fill in your tax return, you don't then stand over their shoulder and tell them you could do it, or think you could do it better than them. The reality is, whilst the sector does sometimes have some relatively well-earned negatives, for the most part, it's a very professional sector, and people do, we do find opportunities for people that can transform their lives. We know that with clients, we've had, huge gratitude from them this year for some of the projects that we've been able to enable them to achieve. So we know that we do, that we are the experts, but obviously every recruiter says that to every client, and unfortunately, they have to make that decision. And I can understand why somebody who heads up a talent department or HR director will sit in front of a CEO or CFO and have to justify their agency spend when, according to the CEO or CFO, there's hundreds of people, there's thousands of people in the market. So why are you spending with an agency? It just doesn't seem sometimes to quite compute. So that's probably a challenge for us and our teams on the floor to make that case as to what insight we provide and the fact. I think the one thing I say, I heard a really good thing, funny enough, at the expo, and they said, think of the recruitment marketplace like an iceberg. The people that are applying for your jobs are the people above the waterline, and the recruiters, the good recruiters that have got the networks and they've built their expertise over many years, they will be speaking to the candidates underneath the waterline who won't apply for your job, but they will, for the right opportunity, be open to a discussion. And they tend to be the real strong candidates that are hard to find.
Yeah. Would you say as well, like, I know we've obviously talked a lot about biggest challenges, so I'm conscious that we probably can move on, but would you say there's also been challenges for the candidate side as well because of challenges?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you only need to scroll through LinkedIn for a day to see some of the frustrations candidates have. The same things that we deal with as well, right? Ghosting, hoping we speak to a client and they say, yeah, we're really keen, and we get terms agreed and we send over profiles, and 2 weeks later we haven't heard anything. And then the candidate on the other, they're saying, well, Eurobase, whatever agency it is, have sold me this role, and then I never heard anything. Now, we'll always try and keep people posted, but there's only so many times that you can say to people that, we're still waiting. So I can see that they share a lot of frustrations with that. There's a lot of automation now when it comes to, if you're getting 500 applicants, you're probably not going to be able to go through those CVs in detail and give detailed feedback to each one. That may be almost kind of like a swear word on LinkedIn to say that, but that's the reality, right? And there's a huge volume of applications, and making yourself stand out has got to be the biggest challenge. I know a lot of our candidates are being a lot more, and we're trying to support them in being a lot more individual and dynamic and unique when it comes to their applications. Obviously, we do a lot with video, and really trying to separate so that candidate isn't just a PDF or a Microsoft Word document that lands in someone's inbox, that they're actually a real person that we can demonstrate to the client. So if there's one, I suppose, tip for any candidate at any level and in any sector is, how can you differentiate? How can you put yourself in front of that person to make your profile jump out? And I don't have the answer for it, but that's ultimately what the challenge has got to be. And that will vary, obviously, from role to role and sector to sector.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think as well, obviously we talk about challenges. What would you say, going opposite to that, would be something you're proud of, I guess, that's happened this year, or something that's been good, an achievement this year for Eurobase in particular, or like a highlight of 2024?
Yeah. No, look, there's been some real positives this year, and as I say, there were times at the start of the year, especially, I was feeling guilty a little bit at some of these events, because I'm thinking we're doing great, and we've got people there that are saying they've been really struggling. So firstly, I would say the bounce back that we had from what was our most challenging year last year has been really strong, and I think that's a testament to everyone that's involved with that. Some of the obviously, I'm not going to go into too much detail in terms of individual clients, but as you know, we've got clients where we've been at a standing start and we've become their biggest supplier, and the work that's gone into that is fantastic. Obviously, we were nominated for the awards at the REC Awards, so that was obviously, it was always nice to get the external recognition there. So I think really we've just spoke at length about how challenging the year's been, but the fact that we are in a healthy position financially, we have sold products this year and I suppose almost talent as a service products to clients for the first time. So we're really starting to diversify what we do in terms of how we can support clients. And then, yeah, from a people perspective, I know, Jess, you've been involved. It's been nice this year. We had a charity that's been really working in partnership with us, which is great. Obviously, Chess Homeless are a local Chelmsford charity, and we did a lot with them, which, like I say, I felt this year they were really engaged, and you and I both did the walk in London. And I know we've done something already, but you've got something else planned for this week, haven't you?
Yeah, I think, well, so during like the harvest donations, we like got loads of like items for stuff that's like not commonly bought in stock, and we donate to that. And we're going to kind of do a similar thing for Christmas, like they get like Christmas hampers and stuff that is basically not commonly put together, so like Christmas puddings and stuff like that you might not think of. So yeah, we're going to do that this week, so that'll be nice in time for Christmas. But yeah, the charity's been amazing to work with. They've been really good. So yeah, Chess Homeless has been, give them another little shout out there. But no, they've been great. And I think that's the thing, is that we don't, it's impossible for us to make every decision correctly. We're going to make mistakes. Are there things I wish had gone better? Are there things that if I could go back, I'd do differently? Of course. However, I think if you took a straw poll of the sector this year, most people would say that this year has been a real tough year, possibly tougher than 2023. So the fact that we're sitting here saying, look, do you know what, we've had a strong year. We've gone back in the right direction after last year, and we're still here in December, right? And we're talking about exciting plans for the new year. We've got clients that are wanting to work with us. You know, we were nominated at the awards last month, so actually we can dwell on the fact that, yeah, there are bits that we would do differently, and there's bits that have been tough. But I think the main thing for me is that we've come through this year in a much stronger. If you look at where we were this time last year, it's a world away. And yeah, like I say, that's something that we can all be really proud of as we sign off. I agree. Sign off for the Christmas holiday. Feeling more. Although it weirdly doesn't feel like Christmas, but yeah, it's coming towards the end of the year, and it just feels a bit more positive, I think. Like, and there's stuff coming up as well. So in the new year, speaking of 2025, you're coming up to your 5-year anniversary in February. So you would have been at Eurobase People for 5 years. I guess, what would you say in your time things have changed since you started, and maybe since you started your recruitment journey in general? Yeah, I mean, funny enough, you mentioned my recruitment journey. So 5 years at Eurobase in Feb, and I think it's in around the September, October was actually my first recruitment job, which was in the year 2000, without giving too much away. So that'll be 25 years next year as well. Wow. So 2 big anniversaries to come. Eurobase, I mean, look, if I'm pretty sure if you said to anybody, name the sort of craziest 5-year period in your lifetime, the whole kind of COVID situation and the last 5 years would be right up there. I came into the role, like you say, in the mid-Feb. By the end of March, we were all at home, and I sort of accepted the role in the late part of 2019, had a long period of gardening leave, and kind of came in ready and raring to go. And yeah, quite quickly I was back at home. So yeah, it was a tough start, but we came through that. And then, like I say, we had a real strong couple of years. Like I say, last year, like we've covered, was a little bit of a step back in some ways, but actually we've come out of that much stronger. And I think it's a horrible cliche, and I'm not going to say it, but you know, we know that sometimes these types of turmoil can then sometimes lead to something much stronger. And I think now we know, and I think that's probably shaping my thinking for the next 5 years, which is something that we're really thinking about at the moment, where we're making probably decisions based on much more solid foundations and with a much more level head. I think I can speak for myself. I'd been in healthcare for many years. I came back into tech after starting in tech originally. And tech, when we were surfing that wave in 21, 22, I was thinking, this is great, this is easy. And it's all, you know, I probably got a little bit carried away, being completely honest, and looking back and putting my cards on the table. You know, I probably started to believe the hype a little bit. Whereas I think now when we're making decisions, we are making them based on
you know, much more analytical information rather than just, hey, the market's great and it's always going to be great. So yeah, I think the last 5 years has been good. Again, a bit like when I spoke about the year in review, the fact that we're still here and we're talking about going into the next 5 years has got to be a good thing. Eurobase is a great company in terms of we are a software business. Again, we say that a lot, and I think we presume people know that, but Eurobase is actually a software business, and obviously the recruitment business is part of that was originally set up to supply into the business, which we still do, and we do obviously a good job internally with that. But we are financially secure. I've mentioned a moment ago about companies that unfortunately are no longer with us this year based on those challenges. You know, Eurobase has a very strong footing. We're founder-led. We've been around for many, many decades, and not many recruitment companies can say that. We've got a lovely office, obviously, that we did probably about 18 months ago, 2 years. We've got space to grow. What's not to like?
That's good. And what, I guess, can we expect then for the next year? What can we expect for 2025?
Yeah, so I think, like I say, really next year becomes almost year one of a 5-year project, really. Like I say, we've had the most turbulent, tempestuous, turbulent 5 years that we could have had. And whilst you can never say, you never know what's around the corner, we're hoping that now there is a little bit, like I say, we've had our election, the US have had theirs. Yes, there are still lots of horrible things going on in the world, and you know, I think if you're worried about some of the geopolitical bits, then you'd be here all day. But we've got to plan for the fact that it's going to be a little bit more business as usual. And you know, we've got some great products that we're now speccing out and selling to the world. We're not just working on, you know, one CV, one candidate, one job. You know, we are actually working in partnership with clients, and really we want to maximize that. So I suppose that's really the bit we're working with. A few companies, obviously, with TRN, and you know, we're really kind of trying to engage in the wider recruitment community and make sure what we're doing is very much best practice, I suppose, and that kind of ties in with a lot of the things with AI and automation. So yeah, there is some very, very exciting bits which I'm sure the team will find out in the next couple of months as we start to rubber stamp that plan. Obviously, our year does actually start in April in terms of our financial year, but we're at the point now where we pretty much know where we're headed. It's just a case of putting those things in place in terms of that structure that's going to allow us to really start to grow, not just purely numbers as in the team, but really what we do as a business. You know, some of the partnering that we've done with companies where we're very proud of that, and like I say, that's the bit we're really looking to embrace and really become a valued part of their business rather than just another agency that happens to send them CVs every now and then.
No, yeah, it sounds very positive for 2025, which is really exciting. I think we're coming towards the end, but I've got some quick fire questions that we normally ask everyone, so as quick as you can, but obviously so first question, what's a common misconception people have about your industry or work? It's a perfect question.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've probably already answered this in terms of people thinking that it's easy, and I think anyone that works in recruitment knows that's not the case. But you know, the fact that we basically just we find CVs and we put them to clients and everyone lives happily ever after, that's really not the case. So I suppose that would be the first thing. I suppose probably one of the other things, a little bit of a kind of a frustration for me, a bit of an ick for me, is that the belief sometimes when I obviously have to deal with a lot of terms. So when one of the team are working with a client, they want to negotiate, whether it's, you know, on various bits, and sometimes you hear the phrase along the lines of, oh, you know, you're going to place a candidate and then kind of headhunt them again in 6 months. I've worked in recruitment a long time. I don't think I know anybody that's done that. And also the bit that sometimes is overlooked in that whole scenario is, if you're the candidate in that, why are you going to let a random recruiter start to run your career and move you around every 6 months? You know, the idea is that, you know, from our side, we want to do a fantastic job for the client. If we place someone in a year's time, they're absolutely flying and one of their best employees, the chances are they're going to want to use us again. And the idea that we would, like I say, actively ring the candidate up and go, you know, that great job we got you 6 months ago, now I've got you something else. So probably I would say that would be something that is a bit of a pet hate, I suppose, that sometimes gets referenced, and yeah, just isn't true.
Good. Okay. And what would you say is more important, technical skills or cultural fit?
What would I say is more important? I would say that cultural fit. I think a lot of companies now are realizing that skills can be trained, and really it's about having that, not even so much cultural fit. I think it's about having the right aptitude in terms of getting the right people in that want to learn, and you know, being able to apply them. I went to, funny enough, another event at the start of the year with LinkedIn. So went over to Dublin for one of their events, which was brilliant. LinkedIn's offices were amazing. Well looked after by our account manager, Matt. So I'll give him a quick shout out just in case he does watch. And LinkedIn said that, I think at the time, I think obviously we was at the start of 2024, and they said by 2030, you know, nearly half the jobs that will exist don't exist now. Like, we don't know what they're going to be because AI is going to change the world, and certainly this is obviously within tech. So having somebody that's got all the skills, whilst it's great for a quick fix, and there are sometimes where, you know, if somebody needs a contractor and there's a specific need on a project, obviously skills are more important in that scenario. But if we're talking more around permanent roles, I think that having the right attitude and the right personal skills would then allow someone to fit into a culture and build and develop. And what you're seeing now is a lot of the real big organizations are hiring much more around that than they are scanning for a CV and looking for buzzwords, which was kind of like, you know, what people have done for many years.
No, I agree. And then final question, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? As generic as you like, but.
Wow. I mean, look, there's so many. I'm going to end with a really cheesy quote, and it's not a cheesy quote actually, because there is an element of truth to this in terms of, and it does come from a golfer, so apologies to everybody. But there's a quote that's attributed to a golfer back in, I think, the 60s, and he said, "The more I practice, the luckier I get." And I think in recruitment, when you deal with people, there are so many unpredictables. You can't say, if you do X of this, this will happen. However, the more chance you put yourself, or the more chances you give yourself, the more you put yourself in the position. You know, sometimes when I've mentioned to the team, you know, if a client walks in on day 1 of January and they say, "Hey, look, this client's just asked for double the work and we're going to need 10 people tomorrow," are you going to be the recruiter that gets that call and gets lucky because a client's just giving you 10 jobs on day 1 back? Well, if you don't put yourself out there and make yourself that person that they call, then you can't get lucky in the first place. So I think that's the bit, is that you can't ever, recruitment's a weird one. You can't ever crack it in terms of, you can't solve the riddle or the puzzle. It never finishes. You have your best month ever, and you know, people like me say, right, do the same again next month. And you know, from our side, if we have our best year, what do I want to do the next year? We want to do it bigger and better again. So you've kind of got to wrestle with that emotion in your own mind and be at peace with that. But you've just got to try and be alert and open to as many opportunities. So it kind of, like I say, ties in. The more you practice something, the luckier you will get. The more opportunities will fall into your lap, and you'll say, "Well, that was good. Like, this client just rang me," but they rang you because of all the years of hard work that you put in to be in that position to do that. So yeah, hopefully that falls under the guise of advice. Just.
No, that's great, and it's a perfect quote to end with as well. And of course, you made it a golf reference or golf quote as well.
Apologies, it was so predictable. At least I didn't mention football teams or anything like that. So look, yeah, but no, it's been good. And as I say, from our side, it has been a funny year. So it's almost talking about it is quite interesting as well. So yeah, hopefully that's come across.
No, amazing. Thank you so much for joining.
Cheers. See you later.